Hello, everyone. Welcome to the TDR Global Asia Podcast.
Walk with you through that decision making. But few of us make those big decisions on our own. But we do need people to take us seriously and to understand that lots of those decision making are hard. And that does include, humans are meant to be social. So having social support is critical. And it's really important that people do feel confident in different academic spaces in order to contribute to other people.
Tropmed Talk.
Hello, everyone. Welcome to the TDR Global Asia Podcast, Bridging Generations in Research, Engaging Dialogues on Grants, Growth, and Early Career Success. I am your host, Rima, currently based in the Department of Parasitology at the Faculty of Medicine, Public Health and Nursing Universitas Gadjah Mada, Indonesia. And I am a TDR Global member and an early career researcher with a keen interest in One Health research. This podcast series is brought to you by the TDR Global Asia in collaboration with the Center for Tropical Medicine, Universitas Gadjah Mada, Indonesia, in celebration of the 15th anniversary of TDR, the special program for research and training in tropical diseases. Through this series, we aim to spark meaningful conversations between early career researchers just like me and the seasoned experts, sharing knowledge, experiences, and inspirations across generations. For our very first episode, as we start our podcast journey, we are going to start strong with the topic, the importance of research mentorship in early careers. And we couldn't ask for a better guest to start with the incredible Professor Lenore Manderson. Good afternoon from Indonesia, Professor Lenore.
Hello, lovely to see you.
It's such an honor, actually, to see you. So how are you, Professor Lenore?
Very well, thank you very much.
Nice to hear that. Before we start today's discussion, allow me to introduce you first to our audience and listeners. Professor Lenore is a distinguished professor of public health and medical anthropology at the University of Witwatersrand, South Africa. I hope I have the correct pronunciation. With adjunct appointments at Monash University, Australia. Her work spans social determinants of health, inequality, and social exclusion across continents. Beyond her groundbreaking research, she is also an award-winning scholar, receiving honors like the Bronislaw Malinowski Award in 2023 and being named a member of the Order of Australia in 2020. Professor Lenore has published extensively over 700 articles and several landmark books like Viral Loads, Anthropologies of Urgency in the Time of COVID-19. So again, welcome, Professor Lenore, and thank you very much for joining us.
Thank you for the generous introduction.
Thank you. To kick things off, Professor Lenore, mentorship is widely regarded as a cornerstone for early career development. From your perspective, what role does mentorship play in shaping the careers of early career researchers?
The thing that's interesting about it is that without mentorship, academics have no training at all. So the assumption is you get a PhD and you know how to be an academic. And that's it. And that writing and grant applications and beginning to play a role in public debates and policy and everything else would be automatic. And of course, we know it's not. But it's an irony that if you train to be a doctor or a school teacher or a lawyer, then you go through a formal period of training and an internship and residencies and so on to gain the skills to be a professional. But academics don't get that kind of training. You do a PhD and then you're on your own. And what mentorship does is provide a way in which people with slightly more experience or a lot more experience are positioned to provide ongoing guidance and advice to someone who wants to be an academic and wants to be an academic across a wide range of skills. So it's about it's a system of advice, but it's also a way for a person who's being mentored to talk out issues that they're facing and to think through the kinds of things that they find obscure about being an academic, like why does it matter to publish as much, or what is research grantspersonship? How do you write a successful grant? One of the things that we do as mentors, I run a mentorship program at the University of the Witwatersrand, is help people clarify where they want to go, so that there are a lot of turning points in an academic career. And a mentor provides a sounding board for people who are, in fact, not quite certain whether they're on the right path or whether they're at the right institution, or it allows them to benchmark their achievements.
So that is very wonderful explanation. So actually mentorship is beyond in academic setting. It's more than that, since you said as well about choose the right path, if I'm not mistaken. Yeah, so benefit of mentorship offers guidance, emotional support. May I say that one as well, Professor Lenore?
Yep. I mean, no, absolutely. And I think that what's important about that is, I mean, it's a way of being a structured friend, right? And a critical friend to people who are becoming academics. And there is no other role. It's not as if people have an advisor who's prepared to invest in people. I mean, it's different from performance appraisal. It's not how much money you bring in or how many articles you publish or something like that. It is around helping an individual feel comfortable being an academic and to be confident that they're the right kind of academic. And, lots of people, me included, fall into being an academic. And it saves an awful lot of effort if there's someone you can be talking through what you're doing. So you're both learning on the job and you've got someone to question about the processes and skills you need and so on.
I see. So it is like, well, basically, it's a whole package that we need to have a best strategy in career advice, especially in an academic settings. Okay.
Yeah, well, it's a whole package, but in fact, mentors aren't there every day. So someone might work with a line manager or their head of department or the head of a laboratory and see them every day. A mentor is someone who has some distance from that role and may not see the person all that frequently, though that will vary. But they are there for a very broad range of issues. And I think you're right. I mean, it's about, how they're feeling about the work as well as what they want to achieve. So it's both personal support and guidance and advice, and then linking that person up with other people and helping them find the right skill set.
Very insightful, Professor Lenore. It's true, it's true. I think that's what I really need, actually. Thank you very much for highlighting that part. Well, so mentorship truly goes beyond academic advice, just like you said. Could you share a personal experience where mentorship significantly impacted your career, Professor Lenore?
The problem is, although I can think of one example, for much of my career, certainly until I became a full professor, I had very little guidance or mentorship. So I was left on my own. And I think one of the reasons why I'm so enthusiastic about the role of a mentor, as I am about the role of being a good supervisor, is because it wasn't something that I had personally. There was an exception, which was when I was in my late 20s. I was part of a group of people interested in Malaysia as a field of study. And there was one person there who wasn't much older than me, but he encouraged me to go to conferences that he was going to. He edited a book and invited me to contribute a chapter. And it was truly the first person who I felt had taken me seriously. And being taken seriously is critical to being a good academic, because one of the challenges is that you need to have belief in yourself. And it was certainly true for me as a young woman, but I think it's also true for people in the global south, that you spend a lot of time trying to prove that you're as good as those people who have a more powerful position than you. So to have just one person say to you, would you like to come into this book where you're thinking of doing it, is really validating. And you walk away, and then you've got someone who's willing to read your work in that case. So he was really important. And the other person who was important, who was the person when I got my first professorship, and I was only 36. So I was working with a lot of people who were older than me, and was fairly unconfident, I think, a lot of the time. And I was on a very steep learning curve. But in that context, TDR was looking for people to be involved in or to attend a scientific advisory committee on social and economic aspects of tropical diseases. And he put my name forward. And that was 36 years ago. And since then, I have been consistently involved with TDR. So it was an absolute turning point. And so he didn't have to say, this is how you do the meeting. He just sent me on my way, or made it be known that I would be a good person to be on that committee. But always that person encouraged and trusted me and my own judgment. And I think having someone who can bring out the best of you in that way is part of what it means to have a good mentor.
Yeah. I can clearly remember, beside all of your explanation prior, being validated and being taken seriously. Those two those 2 points as early career researchers, it's really, it's something that we struggle a lot. But before that, I think that you already prepared with a lot of knowledge and basic knowledge and everything. So Professor Lenore, would you mind telling us on how can we prepare so we can face those being taken seriously and being validated? How can we prepare ourselves?
There are two sides of it, isn't there? And one is to recognize why you might feel invalidated, assuming you're good and you're where you are with good reason. And I think that a lot of people who are TDR researchers and others face enormous difficulties because of the structural position they are in society. And that's about the power that the global north wields over the global south. And if you come from a country that's been subject to colonialism, and if you have struggled to have your voice heard, and if people don't cite you because the people that they cite when they're citing an article are all older white men from the global north, then you're going to feel vulnerable. And all you need is for one person to underscore that, and you lose all of your confidence entirely. And telling yourself, I must be prepared and I must be very brave and I must be confident, is not going to do it. Having someone else saying, look, you're terrific, you can do this, or who's able to say, well, are you sure you want to do it? And or any other advice that might be appropriate, I think is really important. Leaving aside what we might do as academics for each other in a more general sense. But I also think that we are treated seriously when we treat seriously the tasks that we are given. So it seems to me incredibly important that people are well prepared for the different roles that they are assigned as academics. And in that respect, a mentor is there to help them identify what kind of skills they need. Now, there are certain skills that some people don't have automatically that it might be worth really investing in. So not everybody speaks as confidently as others, and that's particularly the case if English isn't your first language, and almost every meeting any of us go to are in English primarily. But learning to speak confidently really helps. And then you're able to get your ideas across and to be listened to. And to take it back to the personal again, I didn't do much debating at high school, for example, or anything around presenting, but I did end up working on a very amateurish level as an actor, and learning how to hold someone on stage was actually invaluable for my ability to stand up. I mean, I used to faint when I gave talks on stage. I'd go up, not as an actor, but as an academic. I'd go to a big meeting and I'd be halfway through a speech and then I'd pass out of anxiety. So actually learning that was a real weakness, and part of what acting did for me was give me confidence in being watched while I talked, and then being confident to express myself. I think, there are a whole pile of little tricks that we do along that line. And, the other one for me is that I'm a keen reader. And every time I read something, then I think that feeds, and including novels, that feeds back into how I imagine and why I write. And it's why I think I find writing a relatively easy thing to do. But to go back to mentorship, the roles I've been given have always opened the door for me to be writing. So one, I liked writing, and not everybody does, and some people find it really hard. But there's also the opportunity to write, so that I think one of the things that one learns if you're building an academic career is not being withdrawn and learning to take advantage of the opportunities. And again, a mentor can help you see those opportunities and take advantage. So, the people who do best, and it does explain global North, global South relationships. Like many people who are very dominant on a global stage are people who've been brought up in schools where they've been encouraged to think of themselves as effective and good and clever and all of that. And someone who's not very confident is going to increasingly be humbled in that environment. So again, I mean, I think what I'm saying to you now is actually the kind of thing I would say to someone if I was mentoring them, that it's not enough to go to a meeting and quietly sit down the back and say nothing, that you need to learn to express your ideas and to take advantage of being somewhere to make your own views held and your own presence felt. And the more that's the case, then the more you build up your own career, and begin to get a sense of where you want to go as an academic in different respects.
Yeah. The whole story is actually really hit me. So thank you very much about that one. So being confident is very important, and how to get those confident level, well, practice and learning makes perfect, right, Professor Lenore? Yeah.
And I mean, I think you can say, well, be confident. And it's, for some people, that's an enormously hard ask. And some people get very anxious. And, one of the ways one gains confidence, I think, is to make sure that you're on top of the brief, so that if a meeting is about policy making in
okay.
a set of countries, then you really need to know some of the language of policy making. There's no point, and read any documents that you get in advance. It makes no sense to go to a meeting and then on day one start learning what it's about, because you're never going to catch up. And so the people who take the floor are the people who've read and have thought about those issues. But I also think that the more you do that, the better able you are to contribute. The more you contribute and the more you listen to as an equal, the more confident you are. So you're in a sort of spiral where once you treat yourself seriously, other people begin to treat you seriously too. And I suppose that is an important point, that, you know, if you get invited, for example, to a meeting, or if you get a paper accepted and you're going to a meeting, you don't do the paper presentation the night before and hope it works, because then you're going to bumble and it's not going to be, it's very hard then for people to even listen to you. The more prepared you are, the better able you are to hold your own in an environment. And that's sort of the beginning of your own self-respect, which is then reflected in how others interact with you also.
Thank you very much again. Well, you said that those words probably also some words that you're going to say to your mentee. Talking about mentee, I am the mentee right now. The position is I am the mentee. To have a good mentor just like you giving those words and motivation, what qualities actually should we look for when choosing a mentor?
One, someone who you feel comfortable with. Like, you know, there are plenty of people who may be wonderful, but not necessarily for you. And so the mentor doesn't have to be necessarily someone who's senior. They do have to be someone who likes you and is committed to what you're doing. And I think, I mean, the challenge with that is that there is inevitably a power relationship between mentor and mentee. So, and if it's a power relationship, it's very easy for the mentee to feel that they don't have a choice. Someone says, oh, well, why don't you go and meet person X or person Y, and they can mentor you. You meet them, you actually don't like them, or they make you feel nervous or anxious or whatever. And you never get beyond that to say what it is that you need to get out of that relationship. And if someone is both senior and dominating, or simply for any personality reason doesn't fit with you, you're never going to say something like, I don't even know if I want to be an academic anymore, which is a perfectly valid thing to raise with the mentor, right? So one, someone you like, and someone who's prepared to give you some time and encourages you. So it's not about you sitting down and saying, well, let's meet for an hour a month. It's someone who you mightn't want to see for 3 months, and then you want a coffee with them, and the coffee might be a 2-hour coffee, not a 30-minute talk. But I mean, there is such an interpersonal relationship that's involved in that. Obviously, someone who knows something broadly about your field, but it doesn't have to be someone with any technical skills. And I think that a mentor is someone who is interested in you and in helping you be the best person you can and get to the right place for you personally. And so that means that it's hard. And it is absolutely about word of mouth and looking around, but also feeling brave enough to decide in some cases that the person who's mentoring you is not the right person. Now, there's something quite significant about that, which is that if you have someone you've been linked up with as a mentee and you're not convinced about the relationship, it's probably equally true that they're not convinced that they're the right person for you. So, and it certainly is going to be hard to say, I don't want to be mentored by you. And probably the best way is to sort of slide away. I mean, I think one can have direct, conversations and say, I really need someone who is a better fit for me in terms of where they are in life or in terms of their interests, and you can say, I'm looking for someone a little different. And that means, but if you do that, you, the mentee, are taking the power. So I mean, there is a challenge, I think, which is to not be overwhelmed by someone who's mentoring you, and to be confident that they are being supportive, but also thoughtful in what they're supporting you to do. So that does include, one, them not dominating and saying, well, let me tell you all about me, and becoming your mentee, right? So you definitely don't want that, nor do you want to hear about their personal life or their latest shopping or their holiday. So they really have to put you at the center, but also to encourage you without trying to push you into a particular stream or to undermine you subtly. So to give you an example of what I mean there, someone I mentored informally a few years ago was having a hard time with their formal mentor, who they felt they could not challenge. And the mentor would say, so what do you want to do this year? And the mentee would say, well, I'd like, to go for promotion. And the mentor would say, I think it's much too early, and talk them down. And then they'd come into my office in tears and say, they're just not supporting me. And so that, people unravel with that kind of feedback. Having said that, I mean, obviously you don't want to say to someone, absolutely go for everything, when it's not a good idea. But there is a way in which one does need to be thinking, if this person wants to get to a particular point, how do I encourage them best, given their own skills at this point? So it's probably a position that one gets better at as one has more experience of it. In the same way, I think that PhD supervision and postdoctoral supervision improves with experience. The more we do anything, I mean, it's true for a surgeon. You would not have a cataract surgery by a person straight out of special and be their number one first operation, right? You want someone who's done 100 of them in the last year and knows exactly what they're doing before they fiddle with your eyes. And I think the same thing, you want someone ideally with experience, which is why most mentors are older.
Yeah. Well, Professor Lenore, so it is true that, our journey to find the right mentor can be daunting sometimes. So because of that, what are the best strategies for young researchers to find and approach potential mentors?
Mm-hmm. There's no sort of checklist, right? I want someone who's going to fit like this. And I think most people find mentors informally. And that means, you go to places where you will meet people who might be mentors, like conferences. And I think one should never underestimate the value of that kind of scholarly interaction. We set up a mentoring program, a formal one, at University of the Witwatersrand, and we've run it now for a few years. And mostly we have thought about, well, this, as senior academics running it, which people might work together because of their experience, their age, their trajectory, where they've come from, and so on. But at the very beginning, when we've been doing the matchmaking, we've given both the potential mentor and the potential mentee a chance privately to say to us that they're not so keen or that they'd love to do it, and given them the opportunity to come up with other names. Now, you can't come up with other names if you don't go to school meetings or department meetings. You can't come up with other names if you don't go to conferences or seminars. So, the more you know about who's out there, the more likely you are to identify someone. Although that, of course, is in your own field. And what we were trying to do in our program was to find people who weren't in the same field, because that avoids competition. And we didn't want people to be competitive, or, for the mentee to be trying to prove to the mentor how good they were, or for the mentor to be guarded that they were about to be overtaken by brilliance. So it is around looking for someone whose role is about being an available wise person.
I see. Yeah. Well, Professor Lenore, now I am very curious about this one. Is it legal? For example, you are an expert in medical anthropology, while I am keen in One Health research. Is it legal, for example, me to have you as a mentor?
Yeah, for sure. I don't think it matters. I don't think it matters what the field is. What I want is someone who takes you seriously and whose interest is in encouraging you. Not everybody is broad, and if you're choosing outside of your own field, then you do want someone who is actually very agile as a thinker and can think through. But on the other hand, that doesn't the challenges that any early career researcher faces are the same of a type. They're not the same in detail, but they're the same of a type. Do you want to focus on teaching? Does tenure matter for you? How do you get more research grants? How do you begin to build up a profile academically? Who should you look to as a way of strengthening your CV? Those kinds of issues anybody ought to be able to do if they've thought about those issues, right? So I can say to someone in One Health, if you're interested in doing more writing, I think that you need to take off some time for sabbatical, assuming you have access to sabbatical. Where are the researchers working in the field who you admire most? Where do you want to be? And then work with the hypothetical you, to find a way to spend, let's supposing they're at Oxford, to find a way to spend 3 months, 2 months even, at Oxford with people that you admire in your own field. And I'm there as the person who's supporting you to do that and helping you think through how do you position yourself in order to get that experience. You don't need someone from within One Health to say, these are the right people, this is who you have to go to, and this is what you do, go away and do it. So it is around helping you think around strategies in general. And I guess, one of the most important things as a young researcher was to think in that way for myself, not the least of which is that when I started in tropical disease research and started being involved with TDR, I had a background in medical anthropology, but it was social anthropology really. And I had a background in social history and in Bahasa Indonesia, but I had no background in disease. So that if you'd said to me, anything about parasitology or epidemiology or vaccinology or anything, I wouldn't have had a clue. And I had to learn in a hurry in order to know what I was dealing with, but also to be taken seriously once I began to get on top of that. I don't clearly, I had a couple of periods where I would go to other places and build up my knowledge in that area, but it was really around thinking, what skill sets do I need to be able to do this kind of work? And the rest of it is, you talk about early careers, but it's not as if one goes from an early career to being a mature researcher in a straight line. So people, women more than men, but people are moving in one line, and then they decide to have children. And then there's a whole challenge around negotiating family and expectations placed on them in that respect. And then there are often turning points, and those turning points include, do I want to keep going up a ladder to do more administration, or if I go up a ladder and do more administration, does it take away from me the things I love most, being a researcher and doing active research and writing? And at different points in our career, we have to reevaluate that. So I think one of the other things is to have a mentor who makes normal those kind of debates. And those kind of debates are around, everything from, do I say yes, yes, yes to every request that comes my way, or do I put my hand in to run an institute when all I really want to do is to be writing articles and publishing and doing research of my own? Do I take time out from work because I want to just have a break? All of those things. I'll give you a little example actually of that. And it's not, the person may or may not have had a mentor, but I can see that a mentor, I have a colleague, and it doesn't matter who he is, but the other day there was a message on Blue Sky, which has been set up as an alternative to Twitter, now known as X. And he's announced that he's resigned from the university, and he's now working as with a global airline as a pilot. Now, that's a massive decision, right? No more research. I'm going to fail.
Yeah.
But you can see, how momentous that decision is. And what a mentor does is help walk with you through that decision making. Now, whoever walked with him through that, and it might have been, after all, his wife and the pilot training people, and have nothing to do with mentors in a formal sense, but few of us make those big decisions on our own. And what we actually do, we may have more than one mentor, and we talk through our ideas. Do I really want to do this, or do I want to do that? And what does it mean? And we don't all need to pay for psychotherapy to get to the next point, but we do need people to take us seriously and to understand that lots of those decision making are hard, and that does include, going, even the decision of going to a meeting and being encouraged to give a paper, and having your mentor, with you and introducing you to people. That's a wide range of skills, right, that I'm talking about, or wide range of strengths and support. But any kind of support, humans are meant to be social, so having social support is critical. And I think it's more critical now than it has been for a long time, because most of us got out of the habit of being very social, excepting on Zoom, during the COVID years. And it's really important that people do feel confident in different academic spaces in order to contribute to other people and to feel valued for what they are contributing.
I see. Yes, So basically, a mentor should, help us, the mentee, to show our potential from ourselves. Is that correct, Professor Lenore?
Yeah,
Yeah.
I,
Yeah.
I think that's absolutely right. I really
Uh,
do. I think that for I think that the most important thing in the end it's not about making decisions for mentees. It's
mm,
simply about empowering a mentee to think for themselves and to feel good about what they're doing. And even
mhm.
if that meant not doing what they're doing, but doing something else. But it is around saying, you're there as the support team, if you like.
I see. Well, that is so inspiring, actually. Thank you so much, Professor Lenore, for sharing your wisdom and experiences. Mentorship is undeniably critical in building strong foundation for early career researchers, and you've offered a wealth of insights today. To our all listeners, I hope you've gained valuable takeaways from this discussion. Remember, mentorship isn't just about guidance, it's about building partnerships that inspire growth and success. Stay tuned to our next episode where we will explore the power of collaboration in global health research. Until then, keep learning, keep connecting, and keep pushing boundaries. My name is Rima. I'm signing out. See ya.